This is a major warning for the food supply, and they are now adding new chemicals to our food and at restaurants that we eat at, and now even adding things from Pfizer, genetically modified organisms, to our food as well. And places like Chik A are also getting hit and adding new things to their food. All right, so this is a wake-up call to grow your own food and to get chickens now. All right, this is just the start. This is just one aspect of it. All right, and it's hard to avoid everything, but we at least need consent. We at least need to know what's going on. And I'm pretty sad that this is happening to Chick-fil-A. All right, I'm kind of devastated. I don't want them to do this to their chicken and their food, but it's happening. It's starting this spring, they said. All right, and there's also GMO organisms being added to our food as well that are created by Pfizer. So let's get into this news here. Please hit it up for me really quick. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. I'm posting multiple videos a day, keeping you guys updated. All right, let's get into this news here. All right, you can see that Chick-fil-A, they are now adding antibiotics to their food. All right, very sad news that we are getting. It says Chick-fil-A set to switch from antibiotic-free chicken this spring. All right, so they've had antibiotic-free chicken this entire time, but now they are replacing it and they're adding chicken to the menu that has been treated with antibiotics, but they're saying that they're, quote, no antibiotics important to human medicine. That's how they label them, or they label them no antibiotics ever. All right, so they're going to the no antibiotics important to human medicine label starting in spring 2024. All right, so that's going to be added to the food now, and it's just another thing. We need consent for this, but we also do not. This seems like overkill to have every single chicken taking antibiotics. It seems a little bit like overkill, if you ask me. All right, and that's not what we do with our chickens. I have chickens right here. Let me show you guys really quick. All right, this isn't what we do with our chickens. You don't have to do this, but personally, this is what we do. They don't have any vaccines. The chickens don't. This is what I do personally. You can do whatever you want. The chickens have no vaccines, no antibiotics, and we try to give them as healthy food as possible, right? So this is what we are working on, and this is what you need to be working on too. Because now you can't even go to Chick-fil-A anymore without them adding antibiotics to the food. All right, this is crazy. And we're going to have enough chicks where we're going to be hatching chicks out and have our own meat birds. All the roosters are just going to be converted into meat birds. All right, that's what we're going to be working on, and have more layers and have some other chicks for another project as well. All right, I'll give you guys an update on some stuff going on outside for that. But this is what you need to be working on. Our food supply, it's happening everywhere. All right, let's get into this other news here about the cheese going on. I thought this was pretty strange as well. Let me put this girl down. You can see here, all right, they are now adding this genetically modified organism that produces this animal enzyme to the cheese, right? So this GMO bacteria, essentially, that they found, Pfizer found, and they patented this. It is now in 90% of cheese sold in the US. And you can see here, this was actually approved in 1990. Okay, but now it's in 90% of all the cheeses. It wasn't like this before. It was in very small amounts before. Now it's almost every cheese you buy, if it's not organic, essentially. it has this genetically modified organism in it. And you can see here, this was actually the first genetically engineered product for human consumption ever to be approved by the FDA. Was this rennet enzyme, genetically modified enzyme from Pfizer. All right, and you can see here right on the article, it says the product's manufacturer, New York-based Pfizer Inc., said it had agreed to sell the product to several major U.S. and foreign cheesemakers, promising a lower price than the natural version, which has risen from $50 to $85 a gallon in the past year. All right, this was in 1990, so that's extremely cheap compared to today's prices. But this is also in everyone's food supply now too. All right, so 90% of cheese has this, and this is what solidifies the cheese and makes it dense, helps it coagulate, all right, and form a shape. This enzyme, it's naturally produced by animals, but it's also produced by certain GMO bacteria that they have produced. Pfizer has, and they've patented these bacteria as well. And it produces similar enzymes that coagulate the cheese too. All right, it's called rennet or renin. Okay, that's what the enzyme's called. That helps the cheese stay together. All right, so something I thought was interesting. I just learned about this, so I wanted to share with you guys that there's just another thing. All right, and you can't avoid it all. There's nothing you can do, right? I go to Chick-fil-A and I buy regular cheese a lot of times, all right? That's just how it is. But I want to know what's going on, and I want to be able to mitigate things as much as possible and be at a level where I'm producing enough stuff on my own homestead where I don't even have to buy any of these products. Soon we're going to be making our own Chick-fil-A and our own chicken nuggets, right? And our own Chick-fil-A sandwich. We'll be making that with our own chicks and our own meat. So that's the goal here. That's what we're working on. That's what you need to be working on too, because it's just everything. Everything has something in it now. This is crazy. It's unavoidable. Every little thing that we are dealing with, that we eat on a day-to-day basis, even organic things, there's a lot of stuff slipping through the cracks, right? There are things like heavy metal accumulation is a big problem in organic foods as well, right? A lot of the fertilizer and things like that that are used, like animal manure, chicken manure, cow manure, things like that, they just come from feedlots where the animals are just eating high amounts of GMO corn, and there's high heavy metal accumulations, and that's just put on the soil for fertilizer, right? Plants love it, but it's also causing things like accumulations of even other things that we don't want in organic farming and in organic products. So I'm not a purist by any means. I understand I have a ton of stuff that's not organic, all right? But the big things that I can avoid, I try to avoid them, all right? And the main goal is to get to the level where your homestead is providing you with these things, right? We're getting eggs. We have a ton of chickens we're growing out. And something we actually just dealt with as well is a hawk, right? So we have a covering on our coop that we can remove. Still has a metal covering, but the openings were a little big. Not too big, but maybe this big, right? And it was big enough for a hawk to get through. We were pulling back the covering so the chicks can get some more sun. And a hawk got in there, got one of our chicks. This just happened yesterday evening, right? And this morning he was trying it again. So we've been on alert. I've got a camera out there checking on him, right? And we haven't been able to keep the chicks keep their top off at all, right? To keep them sunny. They're fine, right? But it's one of these things, we're gonna have to cover that now. You need to be aware that there's predators everywhere. Predators everywhere. I had a big old possum getting into my trash and trying to get into the chicken coops. Right? Had to deal with that. I had a bobcat. This is all just stuff that's happened in the past couple months. Bobcat trying to get my chickens that were in the coop, and they were freaking out. They were screaming. These were the bigger girls, because the smaller girls, you can't really hear them. They're a little bit further out, and you can't hear them. You can hear them if you're really listening. But the big girls, they can really scream. If you've ever heard a chicken do their egg laying scream, where they're screaming when they're laying the egg, they're loud, right? You've heard a rooster before. They're loud. Chickens can be extremely loud, so they can alert you if there's danger or something going on, and we can hear that easily. But the little chicks, it's hard to hear them, right? So be prepared, guys. Get your homestead ready. Get these systems going, because it's only going to get worse. There's only going to be more things added to the food supply every single year. All of a sudden, why are they making this decision? Right? It must just be about the bottom line, money. It must just be cheaper. But just think about it. How is it cheaper to give out these mass V's, you know what I'm saying, to every single chicken, and to give them antibiotics to every chicken? How is it cheaper to give every single chicken antibiotic, this medicine, than to not give it to them? How is that cheaper? The problem is that a lot of these living conditions that they are in are just pretty bad, right? Chickens are squished in there. If your chicks are even just have a little bit of room, they're living in luxury compared to 99% of chickens in these production facilities. They are literally on top of each other and rows of cages, right? And that's part of the reality of how all this stuff works, right? But it also doesn't really make sense that it's cheaper to give out mass medications and all this. It's just, there needs to be a better way. So let me know what you guys think. Are you still going to go to Chick-fil-A? Right? It's one of these things. I rarely go there, but I do like Chick-fil-A. I like supporting Chick-fil-A. And they're a Christian business, right? Or supposedly they advertise that. They're closed on Sunday, right? All that. I like supporting them. But at the same time, this definitely brings into question the frequency of ever getting it is going to be a lot lower now, knowing that this is what we're dealing with. And one thing that I will give them credit for is that at least they tell you what they're doing. A lot of these places, they all just have antibiotics in their food, right? And one disclaimer here about all this is that they say that there's been enough time that has passed since they took the medications that everything's cleared out of their system, right? They say that that's their way to say that it's not actually in the chicken when you eat it, right? That's what they say. But we need to be thinking about antibiotic resistance as well. This could be potentially creating pathogen vectors, especially with these certain animals that are heavily medicated like this. This could be one of the vectors for things like these flus, certain things affecting birds, potentially bird flu. All right. Not saying this is happening, but think about it. It could be a vector to increase the resistance and lethality and virality, potentially, I don't know, I'm just saying maybe, of these different avian viruses if we are constantly medicating them all the time and giving them extreme amounts of these things. All right, so it could be contributing, making these things worse. And we've seen these bird flu outbreaks really bad all throughout the country. They're devastating farms. California, millions and millions of chickens and birds gone just from California in the past few months. All right, major farms that are kind of the backbone of a lot of our supply chain have been taken offline from this bird flu. All right, so it's serious, and I don't know if this is helping, this mass campaign to get this in every single chicken. And when you order chickens or anything like that, or when you get them from the store, they have all these things. They give them all this stuff right at birth, and there's even options for it when you buy, if you buy chickens online from a hatchery, anything like that, there's options from most of them to get all this stuff, get your chicks loaded up before they're sent to you, right? And me personally, I decline and don't like to have a lot of this stuff for my chicks. All right, so get prepared, get stocked up, start growing your own food, get some chickens. They're one of the best, chickens and gardening. All right, it's the two best ways to really get some skin in the game and get started, get homesteading. Very basic level ways to just get going, all right, and have some sustainability. You can eat these chicks. If it hits the fan, gonna have to eat most of your chicks. I've already realized this. Save a few for egg laying, all right, the ones that we can sustain with scraps from our own food, all right. But if it hits the fan, there's no more chick food tomorrow. We'll let them free range. We'll let them tear up the yard as long as they can. But I know that we're gonna have to eat them, all right. So that's another thing. You kind of have a food reserve in your chicks too. It's like, all right, I got enough meat I can eat for a while. I could eat these chicks for a few months, honestly. Space it out if we really need to. While they're scrounging in the yard, one of them, you're just going to eat one a day. Maybe a couple a day for your family, all right? And we might be in a situation like that. You never know. And they're good for that as well. So please hit it up for me down there to help get this warning out, all right? And I like Chick-fil-A. I don't want this to be true, but you need consent, and it is true. All right, you need to know what's happening. So thanks, guys. I hope you have big blessings for your life, your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.